I always thought my wife Carolyn and I were the perfect couple. We had been married for 8 years, had 2 kids and a beautiful home in the suburbs. If you asked anyone in our circle, they would have told you we were the picture of happiness, but behind closed doors the cracks had started to show. It began subtly. She started spending more time on her phone, excusing herself to the other room during conversations. Her laughter, once genuine and shared freely, became quiet or reserved for someone else on the other end of the line. I noticed the way she avoided my eyes, how her touch became cold and distant. It was like living with a stranger who wore my wife's face. I tried to brush off the suspicions at first. Accusing someone of infidelity without proof seemed like the fastest way to ruin a marriage. But then came the voicemail. Caroline had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was out shopping. The screen lit up with a notification from someone named Mark. It wasn't the first time I'd seen his name, and the knot in my stomach tightened. Curiosity won over restraint. I opened her voicemail. The message made my blood run cold. It was explicit. Mark's voice, a ounceed arrogance, as he detailed their latest rendezvous, mocking me for being oblivious. He probably thinks you're out getting groceries while you're really here with me. He chuckled. My chest burned with rage, humiliation, and heartbreak all at once. I replayed the message several times, each listen solidifying my resolve. This wasn't just a betrayal of me, but of our family, of our life together. But if Caroline had no qualms about breaking vows, then I'd have no qualms about breaking the silence. I planned my revenge, meticulously confronting her one-on-one. Wasn't enough. I wanted everyone to know the truth. Caroline's family had always been her greatest supporters, a tightly knit group who treated me like their own. They deserved to hear the real Caroline, unfiltered. The opportunity came a week later. It was Caroline's father's birthday, and the whole family had gathered at their sprawling estate for a celebratory dinner. The house was alive with laughter and chatter as I arrived with Caroline and our kids. She seemed carefree, smiling and joking as if nothing was amiss. The audacity of it made my skin crawl. Dinner was a grand affair. The dining room buzzed with conversation, wine glasses clinking as plates of roast chicken and mashed potatoes were passed around. Caroline sat beside me, her hand briefly brushing mine. I felt nothing but disdain. Then, as the evening wore on and the dessert plates were cleared, it was time for speeches. Caroline's father, Richard, raised a glass, thanking everyone for being there. It was my cue. Before we move on, I said, standing up, my voice steady but loud enough to command attention, I have something I'd like to share. It's about Caroline. Her head snapped toward me, her eyes narrowing with a mix of confusion and unease. What are you doing? She hissed under her breath. Ignoring her, I pulled out my phone. I've been wrestling with something for a while now, and I think it's only fair that everyone here knows what's been going on in our marriage. The room fell silent. Every pair of eyes was on me. Caroline's mother, Linda, frowned. What's this about, David? I looked directly at Caroline as I pressed play. Mark's voice filled the room, clear and damning. Last night was incredible, baby. I can't stop thinking about you. I don't know how your husband doesn't notice, but I'm glad he's so clueless. You deserve better than that idiot. The silence was deafening. Caroline's face drained of color. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her family, Saturday, frowned, seeing disbelief etched into their faces. The message ended, leaving a vacuum of sound that made the tension unbearable. Linda was the first to break the silence. Caroline, she whispered, her voice trembling. Is this true, Mom? Caroline stammered. It's not what it sounds like. Not what it sounds like. I spat, my voice rising. What exactly does it sound like, Caroline? Because to me it sounds like you've been sneaking around behind my back with someone who thinks I'm an idiot. Richard stood up, his face red with anger. Explain yourself, Caroline. Tears welled in her eyes. I made a mistake, she whispered. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything. I laughed bitterly. You destroyed our marriage, our family, for something that didn't mean anything. Her siblings chimed in, their voices a mix of shock and disappointment. How could you do this? Her sister Emily asked. To David, to your kids. Caroline buried her face in her hand, sobbing, but wasn't done yet. You know, I said, to dress in the room. I didn't do this to humiliate you, Caroline. I did this because I've spent years being the best husband I could be, and you repaid me by making me a joke. I think your family deserves to know who you really are. That evening ended in chaos. Caroline fled the room, her cries echoing down the hallway. Her family stayed behind, their expressions a mixture of pity and anger. Linda approached me, placing a hand on my shoulder. I'm so sorry, David, she said softly. I had no idea. I nodded, too drained to respond. The fallout was swift. Caroline moved out the next day, staying with a friend while we figured out the logistics of a separation. Her family's support shifted to me. They were as Appalled as I was by her actions, the voicemail became a turning point in my life. It was painful, yes, but it also freed me, for too long I'd been blind to the lies that had crept into my marriage. Now there was no room for deception, no space for pretending. Months later, as the divorce finalized and I adjusted to life as a single father, I found solace in the knowledge that I'd stood up for myself. The scars were still there, but so was a newfound strength. Caroline's betrayal had broken me, but it also rebuilt me into someone who refused to be a victim. Revenge, they say, is a dish best served cold. For me, it was served with the bitter truth and the satisfaction of knowing that in the end the only thing